In the world of the mega-rich, there are rules. But in the glittering sphere of Manhattan's elite, there was only one rule. Do not, under any circumstances, cross Genevieve Crawford. She was the wife of a billionaire, a titan, but she was the terror. From the glittering halls of the Met Gala to the private dining rooms of the city's most exclusive restaurants, her whisper could end a career. Everyone feared her, until a new waitress, a woman with nothing to lose, and a past no one could guess, decided to do the unthinkable. She didn't just stand up to Genevieve. She made her look utterly, publicly ridiculous. The restaurant Ayura wasn't just a place to eat. It was a fortress of exclusivity. Tucked away on a quiet, cobblestone street in Soho, it had no sign. If you had to ask where it was, you weren't invited. Inside, the world was muted, all deep velvets, soft gold lighting, and the hushed, reverent clinking of crystal silver against Bernardaud porcelain. The staff moved with the silent, practiced grace of ballet dancers, their faces set in masks of serene professionalism. This serenity, however, was a fragile thing. It shattered the moment the reservation list showed the 8:15 p.m. booking. Crawford, party of 4. "She's coming," the maitre d', Mr. Henderson, whispered, his face visibly paling as he straightened his already perfect tie. "Full alert. Leo, you're on water. Maria, bread service immediately. And the new girl, Sophia, you're shadowing Maria. Do not speak to the table unless spoken to. Do not make eye contact. Do not breathe too loudly. Am I clear?" Sophia Russo nodded, her expression neutral. She was new, only in her second week, but she had already heard the legends. Genevieve Crawford, wife of the real estate mogul Marcus Crawford, a man who didn't just build skyscrapers but seemed to own the skyline itself. But while Marcus was the power, Genevieve was the executioner. She was a woman who had reportedly gotten a sommelier fired and blacklisted from every Michelin-starred restaurant in the city because he'd suggested a wine she felt was pedestrian. She had driven a rival socialite out of New York by starting a rumor so toxic the woman's husband lost his seat on the board of his own company. Genevieve Crawford didn't just have influence, she wielded it like a sharpened blade. At 8:05 p.m. she arrived. The hushed room seemed to draw in a collective breath. Genevieve Crawford was tall, impossibly thin, and draped in a Bottega Veneta dress that looked like liquid gold. Her black hair was pulled into a severe, architectural bun, and her diamonds, a blinding Harry Winston set, seemed to suck the light from the room. She was flanked by her husband, Marcus, who looked perpetually bored, and another couple, the equally wealthy Van Heems. "Henderson," she said, her voice a low, cold drawl. She didn't greet him, she summoned him. "My usual table. And I hope the air conditioning is fixed. It was Arctic in here last time. I felt like I was dining in a meat locker." "It has been attended to personally, Mrs. Crawford," Henderson said, bowing slightly. "We have adjusted the thermostat to your preference." "We'll see." Sophia watched from the service station, her eyes clinically detached. She watched Henderson's desperate fawning, the nervous tremor in Leo's hand as he poured the $40 Voss water. Genevieve scanned the room, her gaze landing on every diner. It was a queen surveying her court, and everyone who met her eye quickly looked away. They were seated at table 1, the prime alcove booth. Sophia shadowed Maria, placing the small, artisanal bread basket and the butter sculpture on the table. "What is this?" Genevieve's voice sliced through the air. Maria froze. It's the sourdough, Mrs. Crawford, with the cultured Vermont butter." Genevieve poked the bread with a long, manicured finger. "It's stale. This is an insult. Take it away." My apologies, Ma'am," Maria stammered. "And you," Genevieve said, her sharp eyes landing on Sophia for the first time. Who are you? I don't recognize you." Before Sophia could answer, Henderson was there. "This is Sophia, Mrs. Crawford. She is in training, a trainee. She won't be serving you directly." Genevieve looked Sophia up and down, a flicker of contempt in her eyes. Training. At Aura. How dreadful. It's like watching a butcher learn to perform surgery. See that I don't have to look at her again. Sophia simply held her gaze for a fraction of a second too long, her expression unreadable. She didn't flinch, she didn't stammer, she didn't apologize. She just registered the command. Then she turned and walked away, every step measured. From across the room, she watched the rest of the dinner unfold. Genevieve complained about the wine, too warm, the appetizer, too cold, and the lighting, too dim. With every complaint, Henderson comped another item, offered another fawning apology, and sent another bottle of outrageously expensive champagne to the table. By the end of the night, Leo, the young waiter, was a nervous wreck. As he cleared the dessert plates, his hand brushed against Mrs. Van Heem's water glass, spilling a few drops onto the tablecloth. It was a minor incident, insignificant. Genevieve pounced. "Incompetent," she hissed, loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "Henderson, this boy just soaked my friend. He ruined the sleeve of her Chanel jacket." The woman, who hadn't even noticed, looked down at the 2 drops of water. "Oh, it's nothing, Genevieve." "It is everything," Genevieve snapped. "It is the principle. This is Aura, not a diner. You," she said, pointing a finger at Leo, "are clearly out of your depth." Leo was chalk white. "Mrs. Crawford, I am so—" "Don't speak. Just go. Henderson, if I ever see him in this dining room again, Marcus will be reviewing your lease. I believe his company owns this building, doesn't it?" The threat hung in the air, thick and toxic. Henderson, trapped, looked at Leo with genuine pity. "Leo, please go to my office." Leo nodded, his eyes shining with tears, and fled the room. He would be fired by morning. Sophia watched it all from the shadows of the service station. She didn't look angry. She didn't look scared. She looked interested. She pressed a tiny, almost invisible button on the side of the cheap digital watch on her wrist. A small red light blinked once, then went dark. The first recording was saved. 3 days later, Sophia was no longer a shadow. She had been fast-tracked, her performance deemed exceptionally efficient by a terrified Mr. Henderson, who was desperate to replace the staff members who had quit after the Leo incident. Then the call came. Crawford, party of 1. Lunch. This was unusual. Genevieve rarely dined alone. When she arrived, she wasn't wearing her power broker uniform. She was in sleek, black athleisure, her hair in a tight ponytail. She looked like a panther, relaxed, but no less dangerous. "You," she said, spotting Sophia at the host stand. "My table." "Mrs. Crawford," Sophia said, her voice perfectly modulated. "A pleasure. This way." Henderson darted forward. "Mrs. Crawford, perhaps you would prefer—" "I want her," Genevieve said, cutting him off. "I want to see if she can handle it." It was a test, a gladiator being thrown to the lions. Henderson gave Sophia a look that was half apology, half terror. Sophia simply picked up the menu. She seated Genevieve at the corner booth. "I won't be needing this," Genevieve said, dismissing the menu with a wave. "I'll have my usual, the roasted vegetable salad, but the beets must be quartered, not diced. The goat cheese must be crumbled, not cubed. And the dressing, I want the olive oil from your reserve, the Castello di Ama, and the balsamic must be aged at least 25 years. You'll bring the bottles to the table so I can inspect them. And I want a single poached egg on top. The yolk must be runny, But the white must be firm. Not a single trace of wisp. Understood? It was a ridiculous, intentionally difficult order, designed to fail. Of course, Sophia said, without writing a single word down. To clarify, quartered beets, crumbled chèvre, side of 25-year balsamic, and the Castello di Ama for inspection. A single, perfectly poached egg. Would you like your usual Pellegrino with a lime wedge, not a wheel? Genevieve's eyes narrowed. The new girl hadn't flinched. She'd even remembered the lime preference. Yes, and be quick about it. Sophia nodded and retreated to the kitchen. The kitchen staff, who had been pre-warned, scrambled. The chef, a formidable man named Antoine, personally poached the egg, cursing Genevieve under his breath. 10 minutes later, Sophia returned. She placed the bottles of oil and vinegar on the table. Genevieve picked them up, inspecting the labels as if they were passports. Satisfied, she nodded. Then came the salad. Sophia placed it down. It was perfect. The egg was a flawless white orb. Genevieve stared at it. She was looking for a flaw. She picked up her fork and surgically sliced the egg. A perfect, deep orange yolk cascaded over the greens. She took a bite of a beet, quartered, a bite of the cheese, crumbled. She was visibly, profoundly annoyed. "It's adequate," she finally said. "Is there anything else I can get for you, Mrs. Crawford?" Sophia asked, her tone placid. "Yes," Genevieve snapped, her eyes searching for a new weapon. "My phone is dying. I need a charger. An iPhone 15, the new port." "Of course." Sophia returned a moment later with a portable charging brick. Genevieve plugged in her phone. Nothing happened. "This is broken," she said, a triumphant smirk appearing on her face. "You brought me a broken charger." "My apologies, ma'am," Sophia said. She examined the charger. "It appears to be functional." She then looked at Genevieve's phone. "Pardon me, Mrs. Crawford, but it seems there is a small amount of lint in your charging port. It's a common issue. It prevents a solid connection." Before Genevieve could react, Sophia, with the speed of a surgeon, took a sterile plastic toothpick from the server station. "If you'll allow me—" "Don't you dare touch my—" But Sophia was already done. In a single deft movement, she had inserted the pick and cleared a small, dense clump of pocket lint from the port. She plugged the charger in. The phone lit up with the charging icon. The entire interaction took less than 3 seconds. Genevieve Crawford stared at the small, pathetic grey clump of lint sitting on the pristine white tablecloth. It was intimate. It was common. Sophia said, "It should charge perfectly now. Will there be anything else?" Genevieve was speechless. She felt a hot flush of embarrassment, quickly replaced by a cold wave of fury. This girl hadn't just served her. She had fixed her. She had exposed a mundane, messy, human flaw. She had treated her not as a queen, but as a customer. Get out of my sight," Genevieve stammered. "Certainly." Sophia walked away, but she could feel Genevieve's eyes burning into her back. The first shot had been fired, and it wasn't by the queen. It was by the waitress. Genevieve knew then that this girl wasn't just another spineless server. She was a problem. And Genevieve Crawford solved problems. Sophia Russo's life outside of Aura was a stark contrast to its opulent halls. She lived in a small, nondescript studio apartment in Brooklyn. There was no velvet, only a functional futon, a powerful laptop, and a wall covered in a complex web of photographs, names and connections, all linked with red string. At the center of the web was a smiling, kind-faced woman with blonde hair, standing next to her husband and 2 young children. The name under the photo was Catherine Bisset. Sophia clicked the button on her watch and the audio file from her lunch service with Genevieve uploaded to her encrypted drive. She listened back to the sound of her own voice. "It seems there is a small amount of lint in your charging port." A small, grim smile touched her lips. "Phase 1 complete," she murmured to herself. Sophia Russo was not a waitress. She was a private investigator. And not just any PI. She was a specialist in corporate espionage and reputation recovery, known in elite circles as the Ghost. She was the one you called when a high-powered executive was being blackmailed, or when a public figure needed to quietly erase a mistake. This, however, was personal. Catherine Bisset was Sophia's cousin. A year ago, Catherine had been one of the brightest stars in the New York charity circuit. She ran a foundation for underprivileged children that had been her life's work. She had, unfortunately, made the mistake of unknowingly upstaging Genevieve Crawford at a benefit, raising more money and getting more press coverage. The retaliation was swift and merciless. Genevieve started a whisper campaign. She implied Catherine was having an affair with a prominent politician. Then, she used her husband's connections to trigger an anonymous audit of Catherine's foundation. They found nothing, but the implication was enough. Donors pulled out. The board resigned. The final devastating blow came when Genevieve leaked a doctored photo suggesting Catherine's husband, a mild-mannered banker named Thomas, was involved in insider trading. The photo was a fake, but the SEC investigation was real. Thomas was fired. The Bisset family was ruined. They lost their home, their friends, and their reputation. They fled to Chicago, broken. Catherine had called Sophia, not for revenge, but for justice. She destroyed us, Sophie," she had wept. "She does this to people. She's a monster. Someone has to stop her." Sophia agreed, but she knew you couldn't fight a monster like Genevieve in the press. You couldn't sue her. The Crawfords had a legal team that could bury the Justice Department. No, to stop Genevieve, you had to take away her power. And her power was built on a foundation of fear and an impenetrable aura of social perfection. Sophia had to prove Genevieve was a fraud. She needed to get close. So, she had fabricated a new identity, built a flawless and bland resume, and gotten a job at Genevieve's favorite restaurant. Aura was her hunting ground. Sophia turned back to her board. She wasn't just investigating Genevieve. She was investigating Marcus. She had a theory. Genevieve's social cruelty wasn't just a hobby. It was a distraction, a look-over-here maneuver. While everyone was terrified of the wife, what was the husband doing? She cross-referenced Genevieve's dinners at Aura with Marcus's public business schedule. An interesting pattern emerged. Every time Genevieve raised hell, caused a scene, or got someone fired, like the Leo incident, Marcus was at the same dinner, quietly talking business with someone very important. The night Leo was fired, Marcus was dining with the Van Heems, and Mr. Van Heem was on the city zoning board. "You're not just a bully, Genevieve," Sophia whispered, pinning a new photo to the board, a candid shot of Marcus Crawford shaking hands with a city councilman. "You're the diversion. You're the shiny, loud, terrifying object everyone watches while your husband picks their pockets." Sophia's new mission was clear. She didn't just need to expose Genevieve's cruelty. She needed to find the crime. The lint in the charger was a psychological poke. The next step would be much more dangerous. She had to get Genevieve to escalate, to make a mistake, to become so enraged by the insolent waitress that she would get sloppy. And Sophia knew exactly how to do it. Genevieve Crawford was a creature of habit. Every Thursday, she lunched with her two closest sycophants, a pair of equally wealthy, shark-eyed women named Lydia and Margot. Sophia, who had proven herself, was assigned their table. And now she has this one serving us, Genevieve muttered as Sophia approached. "Be prepared for anything. Last time, she practically accused me of being unhygienic." "No!" Lydia gasped, appropriately horrified. "Yes, she's insufferable. But Henderson says his hands are tied. Good stuff is so hard to find." Genevieve smiled thinly at Sophia. "We'll be starting with the Perrier Jouet, the 2012 Belle Époque. And make sure it's chilled, not frozen. I won't abide ice slush." "Of course, Mrs. Crawford," Sophia said. The lunch began. It was a masterclass in veiled cruelty, with the three women dissecting the appearance, finances, and marital problems of every person they knew. Sophia served them with quiet efficiency, her face a mask of polite indifference. This, she knew, was what infuriated Genevieve the most, her complete and utter lack of fear. Sophia was an object, a tool. She was supposed to be cowed. Her refusal to be was a personal affront. As Sophia cleared the appetizer plates, Genevieve said, "You know, Margot, I am so relieved. Mark has finally closed on the new property. That dreary warehouse district by the water. He's finally tearing it all down." "Oh, but I heard there was trouble with the Historical Society," Margot asked. "Please," Genevieve scoffed, waving her hand. Her massive, pear-shaped Harry Winston diamond earring flashed under the light. A few phone calls, a generous donation to the right preservation fund. And suddenly, everyone agrees that a pile of bricks isn't worth saving. It's amazing how reasonable people can be when you appeal to their interests. Sophia's hand didn't even tremble as she placed the new silverware. But inside, her heart was pounding. A generous donation, a pile of bricks. This was it. This was the connection to the zoning board. She needed that recording. As she turned to leave, Genevieve's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Her grip was like steel. "You're clumsy," Genevieve said, her voice low. "Ma'am, you bumped my arm." "My apologies, Mrs. Crawford. I did not." "You did. And look." Genevieve's other hand went to her earlobe, her face twisted into a mask of theatrical horror. My earring! It's gone! You knocked it off!" Lydia and Margot gasped. Diners at nearby tables turned to look. "You!" Genevieve shrieked, standing up and pointing at Sophia. "You clumsy little... That was a 10-carat flawless diamond. It's worth more than your entire life." "Mrs. Crawford, please remain calm," Sophia said, her voice level. "Calm? You lost my earring. Or... did you?" Genevieve's eyes narrowed into slits. "Did you steal it? I saw you staring at it. You probably palmed it." Mr. Henderson came running, his face ashen. "Mrs. Crawford, what is the matter?" "This thief," Genevieve yelled, "stole my earring. Call the police. Search her. Search her now." This was the escalation. It was a classic trap. Genevieve would find the earring in Sophia's apron pocket, or it would simply vanish, and Sophia would be fired, arrested, and utterly destroyed. Her investigation would be over. "Ma'am, I assure you, I did not touch your earring," Sophia said calmly, holding her hands up, palms open. "But I agree. We must find it." "Search her!" Genevieve commanded Henderson. "Mrs. Crawford, I can't do that," Henderson stammered. "It's policy." "Then I'll do it myself." Genevieve lunged, her hands like claws, aiming for Sophia's apron. "I wouldn't do that, Mrs. Crawford," Sophia said, her voice dropping, losing its pleasant server lilt and gaining a hard steel edge. She didn't move, but the sudden change in her tone stopped Genevieve cold. "What did you say to me?" Sophia pointed upward. "I said I wouldn't do that, because camera 3 in the corner has a perfect, high-definition view of this entire table, and it will show that my hand was never within 12 inches of your ear. It will show me clearing plates, and it will show you grabbing my wrist." She then turned to Henderson. "Mr. Henderson, I formally request you pull the security footage from timestamp /32 p.m. to 1:34 p.m. I'm sure Mrs. Crawford is as eager as I am to find her missing property." Genevieve's face went white, then a dangerous, blotchy red. She hadn't counted on the waitress knowing the camera angles. "And," Sophia continued, "before we inconvenience the NYPD, perhaps we should simply check the surrounding area. These types of chandelier earrings have clasps that can catch. Perhaps it's snagged." She looked pointedly at Genevieve's cashmere wrap draped over the back of the booth. Oh heavens!" Lydia suddenly cried out, peering into the booth. "Genevieve, darling, look!" Tangled in the fine weave of the cashmere wrap, glittering brightly, was the missing earring. "Oh, silly me," Genevieve said, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. She snatched the earring, her hand shaking. It must have caught when I put my wrap on." There was a dead, awkward silence. Genevieve had just accused a waitress of grand theft, made a scene that silenced the entire restaurant, and had been proven wrong in the most mundane way possible. She looked foolish. Sophia smiled, a small, tight, professional smile. "I'm so glad we found it. A tragedy averted. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll check on your main courses." She walked away, every eye in the room on her. She had not only survived the attack, she had won. She had taken Genevieve Crawford's power move and turned it back on her, making her look like a hysterical, careless woman. Genevieve sat down, her face a mask of thunder. The lint incident was an annoyance. This was a declaration of war. The waitress had to be destroyed. The failed diamond trap changed everything. Genevieve was now obsessed. She stopped coming to Aura to dine and started coming to hunt. She would sit at the bar for hours, nursing a single glass of wine, her eyes fixed on Sophia. She was watching, waiting for a single slip-up. This new, constant surveillance made Sophia's investigation infinitely harder. She couldn't get close to Marcus's table. She couldn't linger near the bar. Her audio recordings became fragmented and useless. Snippets of small talk, complaints about the music. Worse, the pressure on her client, Catherine, was intensifying. "She knows I'm connected to you, Sophie," Catherine whispered over a secure line, her voice thin with panic. "I don't know how, but she knows." "How? That's impossible," Sophia said, pacing her tiny apartment. She sent me a package, anonymously, to our new address in Chicago. It was a box of dead roses, and a copy of the program from my last charity ball, the one she ruined. There was a note. It just said, "You can't hide." Sophia felt a cold knot of dread. Genevieve wasn't just a bully. She was a stalker. She was using her husband's resources, his security teams, his data miners, to terrorize a family hundreds of miles away. "She's trying to spook you, Kath. She's trying to cut me off," Sophia said. "It's working," Catherine cried. "Thomas, his new employer's got an anonymous tip about his history in New York. They're reviewing his position. Sophie, we're drowning. We have 2 kids. I can't do this anymore. You have to stop. Please, just let it go. She wins. She always wins." The line went dead. Sophia stared at her evidence board. Catherine was right. Genevieve was winning. The slow, methodical gathering of the evidence was failing. Aura was a dead end as long as Genevieve was guarding the door. Sophia was trapped, a waitress playing a part, while the woman she was hunting was outmaneuvering her at every turn. She needed a new angle. She needed to get out of the restaurant and into the operation. She shifted her focus from Genevieve to the one person who seemed to be on the inside, but wasn't family. Lydia. Lydia, the sycophant. Sophia had watched her. Lydia wasn't just a friend, she was nervous. She seemed to laugh too hard at Genevieve's jokes and agree too quickly. She was a follower, but a scared one. Sophia began a deep dive, not on Lydia's social life, but on her finances. It didn't take long. The woman's husband had made a series of bafflingly bad investments, losing most of their fortune. They were leveraged to the hilt. They weren't rich. They were pretending to be rich. And who held the note on their Park Avenue apartment? A shell corporation? Sophia typed the name of the corporation into her database. GC Holdings, GC Genevieve Crawford. You're not her friend, Lydia, Sophia whispered, a cold, sharp thrill running down her spine. You're her asset. Genevieve wasn't just keeping Lydia close as a friend. She was keeping her close as leverage. Lydia was trapped, forced to be Genevieve's public ally, her echo, because Genevieve literally owned her home. This was the break. Sophia now had a way to get to Lydia. But she couldn't approach her as Sophia the PI. She had to remain the waitress. She needed Lydia to come to her. She staged her next move carefully. She knew Lydia came to Aura every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m., half an hour before Genevieve, for a calming tea. That Tuesday, Sophia was, accidentally, on a break in the alley behind the restaurant when Lydia arrived, her face pale and stressed. Sophia was on her personal phone, speaking in a low, urgent voice. "No, I understand the pressure," Sophia said, pretending to be deep in conversation. "But foreclosure is a messy, public process. You tell your client there's another way. If they're willing to be discreet, we can negotiate a silent transfer. It saves the embarrassment, and my associate gets the asset. It's cleaner." She paused as if listening. "Yes, I'm just a waitress. But the people I work for, they're not. Tell him to think about it." Sophia hung up and looked up, feigning surprise as she saw Lydia standing there, frozen, a look of stunned recognition on her face. "My apologies, ma'am," Sophia said, slipping back into her waitress persona. "Just a family matter. Your table is ready inside." She walked past Lydia, leaving her in the alley. She had baited the hook. She had presented herself as something Lydia desperately needed, a person who understood financial ruin and who worked for discreet people. For the rest of the day, Lydia couldn't take her eyes off Sophia. She watched her with a new, terrified curiosity. The plan was in motion. The trap was no longer for Sophia. It was for Genevieve. And the bait was Lydia. 2 days later, an hour after her shift, Sophia was walking to the subway when a black town car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. It was Lydia. "Get in," Lydia said, her voice shaking. Sophia got in. The car was silent as it pulled into traffic. "Who are you?" Lydia finally asked, her hands twisting in her lap. "I'm the person who's going to help you," Sophia said, her voice calm. "You. What I overheard. You're not just a waitress." "No, I'm not." Are you with the government? The SEC?" "No, I'm a private consultant. I help people who are in difficult positions." Lydia broke. The mask of wealth and poise dissolved, and she began to sob. Great, gulping, unglamorous sobs. "She's going to destroy me. Genevieve. She knows everything. My husband, Robert, he lost it all. She bought our mortgage. She holds it over my head. I have to do whatever she says. I have to be her friend. She makes me help her. The rumors about Catherine Bisset? I was the one who had to accidentally tell the reporter from the Post." "I know," Sophia said quietly. Lydia's head snapped up. "How?" "I was hired by Catherine Bisset's family," Sophia said, Deciding a partial truth was the best weapon. "I'm here to stop her." "You can't," Lydia whispered, her face pale. "She's untouchable. She and Marcus. It's not just rumors, you understand? It's business. The zoning board, the councilman, they all eat at Aura. Genevieve, she does the social side. She finds their weakness, a gambling debt, an affair, and then she uses it. While Marcus talks donations. It's a performance. They're a team." "I know that too," Sophia said. "And I know about the warehouse district and the donation to the preservation fund. It was a bribe, Lydia. A bribe laundered through GC Holdings, your holding company." Lydia looked like she was going to be sick. "Oh God, I'm an accessory." "Yes, you are," Sophia said, her voice hard. "Which is why you're going to help me. You're going to give me everything. The name of the councilman, the date of the next payment. Everything. And if I do," Lydia whispered, "she'll ruin me. I'll go to prison. If you don't, I'll give my current file to the U.S. Attorney's Office," Sophia bluffed. "And Genevieve will throw you to the wolves in a second to save herself. You'll be the star witness for the prosecution. But if you help me, I can offer you a different deal. Full immunity in exchange for your testimony." "You can't promise that." "My associates can," Sophia said, using the word she knew Lydia had overheard. "We won't just save your home, Lydia. We'll save you. But you have to choose. Right now. Her or me." Lydia stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. She was a woman trapped, but Sophia had just shown her the first tiny sliver of an escape route. "Her big night is next week," Lydia said, her voice barely audible. "The Aura Foundation Gala. It's a fake charity event. It's where they make the final payments. The city councilman. His name is Robert Peters. He's the keynote speaker. The donation is for the rezoning of the South Street district. It's happening that night. At the restaurant. She boasts about it. She calls it hiding in plain sight. And she'll be there? She'll be running the show. It's her masterpiece," Lydia said bitterly. "Good," Sophia said, a predatory glint in her eye, "because a masterpiece is the perfect thing to destroy." She now had the what, the who, and the when. She had her inside woman. All she needed was the stage, and Genevieve, in her arrogance, was building it for her. The night of the Aura Foundation Gala was the apex of the Crawfords' reign. The restaurant was unrecognizable, transformed into a forest of white orchids and dripping crystal chandeliers. The air hummed with the sound of string quartets and the murmur of New York's most powerful voices. Senators chatted with hedge fund titans, old money matrons, dripping in ancestral jewels, air-kissed tech billionaires. It was a room where the combined net worth could rival the GDP of a small country, and at the center of this universe, Genevieve Crawford was the sun. She was a column of crimson fire in a custom Schiaparelli gown, a matching ruby and diamond graph necklace resting on her collarbone. She didn't walk. She glided, a shark in silk. Marcus was at her side, the Shadow King, his tuxedo perfect, his smile a thin reptilian line. They were untouchable, invincible, accepting the fawning congratulations for their extraordinary generosity. "Genevieve, darling, it's just breathtaking," a woman gushed. "One does what one can, darling," Genevieve replied, her voice a purr of false modesty. "It's all about giving back to this wonderful city. Renewal. That's our theme tonight." Hidden in plain sight, in the small, curtained-off alcove that served as the coat check, Sophia Russo watched. She was invisible, a ghost in a black uniform. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird in a cage, but her hands were steady. This was it. Months of planning, of swallowing insults, of living a double life, all came down to the next 60 minutes. She saw Lydia enter, her face pale and ghostly under the warm lights. She clutched a small beaded purse, her eyes darting around, as if looking for an exit. She looked, Sophia thought, exactly like a woman on the verge of either a panic attack or a betrayal. Lydia met Sophia's gaze across the room. Sophia gave no sign of recognition, just a blank, professional stare. But Lydia saw her, and she knew. The clock was ticking. At $9 p.m., the speeches began. Marcus took the stage first, his voice resonating with manufactured warmth. "And that's why this foundation is so vital, but I'm just the nuts and bolts," he said, chuckling, as the crowd politely tittered. "The real heart, the vision of this endeavor, is my brilliant wife, Genevieve." Genevieve rose to a thunderous, obligatory standing ovation. She approached the podium, basking in the light. She looked over the crowd, her subjects, and her smile was one of pure, ecstatic arrogance. "Thank you, Marcus," she began, her voice velvety and amplified. "Thank you all. You know, when we looked at the South Street district," this was it, the first keyword. Sophia felt her stomach clench. "Some people saw only decay. They saw a pile of bricks, a forgotten, ugly relic." She paused for dramatic effect. "But we saw potential. We saw a future. We saw a chance to renew, to build something shining and new for this great city. But vision is nothing without the will to act. It takes courage. It takes partnership." She smiled, turning her gaze to the front table, where Councilman Robert Peters sat, his face slightly flushed with wine and self-importance. "It takes dedicated public servants, like Councilman Peters, who aren't afraid to make the hard choices, to clear away the old, to build the new." This was the signal. Across the room, Lydia, who had been hovering near the councilman's table, seemed to stumble. Her hand, holding a fresh flute of champagne, twitched. She made a small, strangled sound. She was panicking. She was going to freeze. Sophia, from her alcove, subtly cleared her throat. It was a tiny, insignificant sound, but it cut through Lydia's panic. Lydia's eyes, wide with terror, darted to Sophia. Sophia simply, almost imperceptibly, nodded. "Now." As if snapping out of a trance, Lydia lurched forward. "Oh my word!" she shrieked, her voice high and unnatural. She tripped over the leg of her own chair, her arm pinwheeling. The entire tray of champagne flutes she was inexplicably holding for a friend went flying. It was a masterpiece of contrived disaster. The entire contents, a good liter of $500 Perrier Jouet, doused Councilman Peters. He gasped, jumping to his feet as ice cubes and glass shards skittered across his lap. He was soaked from chest to knee. "Lydia, you clumsy!" Genevieve's voice from the podium was a furious hiss, her speech forgotten. "Oh, Robert, I am so sorry," Lydia cried, dabbing at his jacket with a useless cocktail napkin, only making it worse. I don't know what. It's quite all right," Peters sputtered, mortified as every eye in the room turned to him. Before Henderson could even move, Sophia was there. She materialized from the alcove, a picture of quiet efficiency, holding a thick, warm, damp cloth. "A terrible accident, sir," she said, her voice the placid, soothing tone of a servant. "Mr. Henderson, if I may? The councilman can use your private office to dry himself. And, sir, if you'll give me your jacket, I can take it to the back and have it steamed immediately. It will only take a moment. We have a professional-grade steamer." Yes, brilliant," Henderson said, his face slick with sweat. Peters, desperate to escape the spotlight, gratefully shrugged off his soaked tuxedo jacket and handed it to Sophia. "Thank you, young lady, thank you." Sophia took the jacket, nodded respectfully, and walked swiftly toward the back of house. She didn't run. She walked with purpose. The moment she passed through the swinging kitchen doors, her demeanor changed. The coat check girl vanished. The investigator took over. She bypassed the kitchen and ducked into the dry storage closet, her designated blind spot. Her hands, which had trembled holding a wine bottle last week, were now the steady hands of a surgeon. She had less than 5 minutes. She found the councilman's phone in the inner breast pocket, a locked, government-issued black phone. It didn't matter. She wasn't hacking it. She was using it. From her own pocket, she pulled a device the size and thickness of a credit card. It was a high-frequency RF transceiver. She slid it, with practiced, silent precision, between the phone and its hard plastic case. It was a perfect fit. Invisible. She then went to the staff locker room, hit the jacket with a hot steamer for exactly 60 seconds, just enough to make the story plausible, and was back out the door. She walked calmly to Henderson's office. Councilman Peters was inside, dabbing at his trousers. "Your jacket, sir," Sophia said, handing it to him. It was warm and pressed. "You're a miracle worker," he said, sliding it on, his good mood returning. "A complete miracle." "Happy to help, sir. Please, enjoy the rest of your evening." She walked back to her alcove. She resettled herself. Invisible. Her heart was a cold, steady drum. Phase 2 was complete. She glanced at Lydia, who was back at her table, shaking so hard she was visibly vibrating. Sophia gave her another mission-critical task. She had Lydia's phone, which she'd accidentally left in the coat check, and it was now connected to a small, powerful battery pack and a mini hotspot. The trap was set. On stage, Genevieve, having recomposed herself, was trying to regain her momentum. "As I was saying," she continued, her voice tight with annoyance at the interruption, "it's about a bold new vision. A vision we are proud to fund with this gala tonight." Sophia took a deep breath. From her pocket, she pulled a small, simple smartphone. She opened a single custom-built app. There was one button. She pressed it. The app sent a signal to Lydia's phone, which acted as a relay. The relay activated the transceiver on the back of Councilman Peters's phone. The transceiver, in turn, began to broadcast a high-frequency signal. The restaurant's state-of-the-art sound system, which was patched into every phone on the main table for presentation purposes, had just found a new, dominant signal source. A loud pop echoed through the room. The classical music died. Genevieve faltered. A technical glitch, it seems. A burst of static. And then, a voice. Her voice. "Honestly, darling, that new councilman is cheaper than a new pair of Louboutins. Marcus just buys the skyline, and I just keep the guests entertained." The room went utterly, profoundly silent. You could hear a diamond drop. Genevieve's smile didn't just freeze, it shattered. Her face went the color of chalk. What is this?" she stammered into the microphone. Councilman Peters looked down at his own phone, which was now, inexplicably, the source of the broadcast. He fumbled with it, but the audio was hijacked, routed. Then, a new voice. Marcus's. Cold, clinical, and clear as a bell in the silent room. "Peters is handled. The foundation payment tonight will seal the rezoning. $5 million to his cultural fund, and he'll vote to condemn the whole district. It's done." A wave of horrified gasps swept the room. Marcus Crawford's head snapped toward the stage, his eyes, for the first time, wide with pure panic. He wasn't bored anymore. "Turn it off!" Genevieve shrieked at the sound booth. "Turn it off!" But the technician was as frozen as everyone else, and then came Genevieve's laugh, a cold, brittle cackle that she herself had recorded on Sophia's watch. "It's perfect, hiding in plain sight. These idiots will clap for us while we rob them blind. That's the real aura. They're all so reasonable." The idiots were now staring at her. The senators, the billionaires, the matrons. Their faces were not amused. They were not reasonable. They were cold with the dawning, furious realization that they were the props in the Crawfords' criminal theater. This is a lie," Genevieve yelled, her voice cracking. "It's a deep fake. Slander." "Is it, Mrs. Crawford?" A new voice cut through the chaos. It was calm, clear, and amplified. Sophia Russo stepped out from the coat-check alcove. She was no longer a ghost. She held her own small professional microphone. The press, who had been relegated to the back of the room, surged forward, their cameras flashing, sensing the kill. "You," Genevieve breathed, pointing a shaking finger. "The waitress. You did this." It was a fatal admission. "My name is Sophia Russo," she said, her voice booming through the very speakers the Crawfords owned. She walked steadily toward the stage. "I'm a private investigator, and for the last 6 months, I have been documenting the criminal conspiracy you and your husband call philanthropy." "This is insane," Marcus bellowed, finally finding his voice. He started to move toward her. "Security! Get this! This woman! Get her out of here!" But the restaurant's security guards were looking nervously at 2 men in dark, conservative suits who were suddenly flanking Councilman Peters. "That won't be necessary, Mr. Crawford," the first man said, his voice quiet but carrying. He flashed a badge. "FBI, please stay where you are." The second man was already placing a stunned, unresisting Councilman Peters in handcuffs. "And just in case the audio wasn't clear enough for everyone," Sophia said, never taking her eyes off Genevieve, "I brought a visual aid." She clicked a button on a remote. The massive projector screen behind the podium, which had been displaying the Aura Foundation logo, flickered. It was now a flowchart, a devastating, simple, and irrefutable map of their crime. It showed GC Holdings, the shell corp Sophia found via Lydia, at the top. An arrow pointed to Aura Foundation, with a note, "Laundered bribes, Gala." Another arrow pointed to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, labeled R. Peters Cultural Fund. "This," Sophia said, pointing, "is the $5 million wire transfer, sent this morning from GC Holdings, authorizing the payment to Councilman Peters upon his yes vote for the South Street rezoning. It's all here, the bank statements, the offshore ledgers. The audio was the confession, Mrs. Crawford. This is the proof." It was over. The room was a sea of flashing cameras and horrified, silent faces. Genevieve's friends were shrinking away, physically distancing themselves from her, as if her corruption were contagious. Genevieve looked at the FBI agents. She looked at her husband, who was pale and staring at the screen, his mind no longer on escape, but on legal strategy. She looked at the press, who were capturing her total public annihilation. She was trapped, and like a cornered animal, she lunged. It was a primal, incoherent scream of pure rage. "No!" She lunged, not at Sophia, not at the agents, but at the projector cart, as if destroying the image could destroy the truth. But she was a woman who lived by artifice, and she was destroyed by it. Her stiletto heel, a 5-inch spike of red-lacquered Louboutin, caught on the hem of her own $30,000 a Schiaparelli gown. There was a loud, catastrophic, tearing sound. Genevieve, the queen of poise, the icon of elegance, stumbled. Her arms windmilled, but her momentum was too great. The laws of physics, which she had so long ignored, finally reasserted themselves. She pitched forward, her scream cut short, and collided directly with the main dessert table. She fell, face first, into the towering, 8-tiered masterpiece of chocolate mousse and gold leaf that the chefs had spent 2 days creating. There was not a thud, but a wet, obscene, and resounding splat. A deafening, stunned silence filled the room. The FBI agents froze. The press stopped flashing. Marcus Crawford closed his eyes. Slowly, Genevieve pushed herself up. She was no longer a queen. She was no longer a terror. She was a cartoon. She was covered, from her hairline to her ruby necklace, in thick, dark chocolate mousse. A delicate gold leaf shaving was stuck to her forehead like a stamp. Mousse dripped in thick, slow clumps from her diamond earrings. Her severe architectural bun had collapsed, and a lock of black hair, matted with pastry cream, hung over one eye. She was, in that single, devastating moment, utterly and completely ridiculous. For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Then, from the back of the room, one of the waiters, a young man she had threatened to fire last week, let out a choked snort. A socialite covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking in a silent giggle. And then it broke. A wave of laughter. It wasn't polite. It was rolling, gut-wrenching, hysterical laughter. The spell was broken. The fear was gone. The woman who had ruled Manhattan with an iron whisper was a joke. The terror of New York was a woman sitting on the floor, covered in cake. As the FBI agents, stone-faced, moved to cuff a silent, calculating Marcus, another agent approached Genevieve. He had to pull her to her feet, her hands slick with chocolate as the cuffs clicked shut around her wrists. Sophia walked over. She knelt, just for a second, so she was eye to eye with the ruined woman. "I told you there was lint in your charger, Genevieve," Sophia whispered, her voice unheard by anyone else. "You should have listened. You were always so busy looking down on everyone. You never saw the small things." Sophia stood up. She looked at the wreckage of the party, at the humiliated woman being led away in cuffs, and at the crowd of the powerful who were already on their phones, managing the fallout. She turned and walked out of the restaurant, not as a waitress, but as the woman who had single-handedly and ridiculously toppled an empire. The fall of the House of Crawford was absolute. The New York Times headline the next day read, "The Aura of Corruption." Councilman Peters was indicted. Marcus Crawford faced decades in prison for bribery and racketeering, and Genevieve, well, she lost everything. Her money was frozen, her friends vanished, and she became a social pariah, a punchline at the very parties she used to rule. The fear she had built her life on was gone, replaced by pity and mockery. Sophia Russo? She used the evidence to clear Catherine Bisset's name, restoring her foundation and her husband's career. The Bisset family returned to New York, not as socialites, but as survivors. As for Aura, it closed, unable to survive the scandal. But the staff, finally free from Genevieve's tyranny, found new jobs in restaurants all over the city, where they no longer had to work in fear. It just goes to show that sometimes the most powerful, terrifying, and untouchable people are just one new, brave person away from having their entire facade crumble. In the end, karma is the one reservation you can never, ever cancel. What did you think of this story of justice? If you enjoyed this tale of drama and sweet revenge, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who loves a good karma story, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more real-life dramas just like this one. We read every comment, so let us know what you think below.